Please join me in thanking these panelists.
Okay? Yeah? Good. Our freestyle? I think it went fine, right?
Delaware, what's like the worst state?
It's worse than.
And everyone, this break is a little bit shorter than some of the prior, so please come back soon.
Because I think I've said that.
Yes, you did. You have said that.
Well, your dean is quite proud of you, right? Everything is doing good here, right?
There's still some people who think maybe the federal homicide
And are you still
statistics are wrong,
service?
and that would explain it.
Is that going well?
Maybe,
Yeah,
but I have no reason to think that.
Good.
You know, I think it's the interesting thing that
I know that's improved it. I know that's improved it a lot. But
there are all those violent networks, but in another way, there's not the self-consciousness that there is in some of the South about,
I told Carol, I said, send me a pre-publication copy so I can read it.
the same thing that you were saying about how long it took them to apologize for slavery, which is sort of, it was there, but they didn't really feel like they needed to do anything.
All right. Next.
I raised my hand, but I didn't get called on, of course. Something I was going to mention is, along with the article and King Kong, those comments, now what I found, I'm a law professor, but I also do capital litigation. The prosecutors are doing coded things. So one of my cases, even though the evidence didn't support this and it's closing, they can see my client's black. Right? And everybody knows the victim's white. They can put it like this. You know how those people shoot. And the straw was this way. It didn't match the evidence, so I'm like, and they don't like my co-counsel, like.
Can you send me the site to that?
And then,
Where did you, I should put it on you to do that, okay.
it was also interesting because the victim, who's like 18 years old, liked rap and hip hop. My client, who's like 26, black, he liked rap and hip hop. But, when he had the victim's mother on the stand and, oh yes, music, and including, that's the prosecutor. Here's this young boy, and it's tragic he died. He loved music and did a radio show, rap and hip hop, and my client.
Gangsta.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Right, yes.
me.
Okay.
You want to flip to the restroom? I'll bring it.
Right. I'll be here.
Quick.
Thank you for. I'm so speedy. I know. I'm gonna do a quick pause before you start. To acknowledge Christina's not here. I'll say Governor White is here.
No, I'll say that Governor White is because I have a message for him about the I don't know if it's basketball or football, but
It was basketball.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll say Christina's not here, and I'm gonna mention Governor Price. Judge Price.
Is he all right? Oh, how awful. Governor Cap is coming. At least he sort of looks like his picture. But everybody else looks like should I be calling you Governor or President Beach or Defender Beach or
There you go.
whatever.
I wanted to sit next to you.
Okay. I was just telling Steve the discussion on race is, of course, so horrible, but he just makes me laugh about it. He's so funny about it.
Yeah.
They don't give a rat's ass. Why am I laughing at this?
Well, I mean, because, it calls out these things that are so obvious and are like, it's uncomfortable and you can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, he's so good at doing that, and then the woman, whatever she is, they're all saying, really, nobody cares and it doesn't make any difference. And Henderson talking about Obama being in the White House.
Right, being evicted and, yeah.
Some people are going to feel angry. I remember the first time I went to the Justice Department after Obama and Holder were in office, and there were their pictures to cry. Because it was just so moving and so.
I remember going into the federal courthouse, same thing,
Yeah.
in Phoenix, the
Who
day
knows
after.
that?
Yeah.
What are they doing up there?
Probably one of the only times I smiled in the federal courthouse.
Yeah, one of the last times I was in the federal courthouse, Marshall was leading me out of then Judge Lucas's courtroom because he had me forcibly removed because I wouldn't shut up. And the marshal was a buddy. But those places are not fun.
No.
And they're worse now, I think, than
Right.
when I was there. All right, here we are. Ready to go.
We're ready, right?
We're ready.
Hello. I have some 5 minutes left.
Missy's going to make
So Mark, are you practicing law now?
I am, yeah.
Oh, good. Whereabouts?
I'm in Northern Virginia, right outside of D.C.
Oh, great.
And then I have an office in Richmond also.
Oh, great, good. Oh, excellent, excellent. Well, you were Attorney General for,
Just one term?
was there a one-term limit?
Yeah.
No, I ran for governor afterwards.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Aging, expiring governor.
Yeah, sure, I know that, yeah.
And in Virginia, our governor's
Who'd
term
you run against?
Mark Warner.
So,
2000.
they still have term limits for governors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Last state in
Yeah.
the nation.
Is it-
One and done.
Yeah. That was actually one
That's why there's so many former Virginia governors out there running.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
One reason is the
Yeah, Kentucky had that, but they got
And
rid
I
of it.
said,
one reason is the powers of the governor in Virginia are fairly significant, a lot more than in other states.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
And the legislature is want to give them
I'll have to go to the press
terms.
place.
Really?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Keep them on a short leash.
It's in there. It's in there with the Constitution.
Because you're like a lame duck after you start.
But the only thing they don't have power is appoint.
Right.
I think I'm totally comfortable with 8 years. I'm fine with that. But 4 years, I don't like that.
Yeah, it's hard, you just
Hard to get anything
started.
Shepherd.
Especially if you have someone who's actually beautiful.
Yeah.
Like right now, we had Mark Warner, we had Terry McAuliffe, and I don't care how smart you are, it just takes a little while to figure out who you have to stroke and how things work. And
Yeah, and to
every legislature's got its own traditions.
and to launch and sustain initiatives. And sustain, I mean sustain them.
Yeah. You got something
You think
controversial.
they're good.
Yeah, it takes a little while to get it through.
Well, that's true. Oh,
Yeah.
very. Oh, you bet.
Guided by
Yeah.
Laura.
Yeah.
What year were you on governor?
99 through 06, January 07. So there's 2 consecutive.
So you were there when Warner was there for part of it.
Yeah, I served with Mark. Yeah.
Gilmore, I guess.
Yes, Mark and Jim. Yeah, over after both of them. Yeah. Yeah, I can't for the life of me figure out what
But I told you the
Jim
Oklahoma.
Gilmore was doing running for president.
But we were planning
Yeah, I'm
on having
guessing he was looking at his position
And
to
now we don't have to because they did
maybe be AG or be an
I still can't understand why our governor is still running either. So anyway, you know,
Now, I do get why
I'm sure he has his reasons.
Yeah, I get why he's more than I did Gilmore.
I mean,
But at least Gilmore got out.
Yeah.
I was very skeptical, but then I got to know Grant Brewer.
I think if there wasn't the specter of a permanent intervention, I don't think Casey would have said it.
That's true.
I think
He
sees it. I mean, this is really a unique time when
That's true.
why you would normally drop out.
No, that's true. And this Trump factor and how is that dealt with? And, you know, could he have some role in dealing with that? Yeah, that's.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I just never thought he had a lane for money. Of course, the people that were in his lane, they all bombed out. I mean, like Bush and Rubio and all those people.
Yeah, Kasich has a different way of communicating, and I think the more you listen to it, it sort of becomes it's a positive thing for him. You know, initially when you hear him, it sounds odd,
Right.
offbeat.
Yeah.
But the more, and I've known him for a long time, but
He's more informal.
more informal. He's
and
got kind of a folksy. Who else is running? There's
Little
a
folks,
folksy.
little folks.
Nobody else is folksy. I mean, Trump and Cruz aren't folksy.
Yeah. No, that. Oh, no.
Bush should be folksy.
Cruz ought to be more folksy.
It's not in his DNA.
Yeah. I was
He's
hoping.
like Gilmore. You know, Gilmore is a good friend of mine, but Gilmore couldn't be folksy if you paid it. I mean, it's just not. It's not how he was brought up. It's not how.
Yeah.
You know,
I was hoping Rubio would get some traction, but obviously he wasn't quite ready either.
It's a weird year, isn't it?
Oh, it's bizarre. It's so strange. We're talking about like Tim Keene might be.
I'm going to do a quick introduction to these comments, and I'll let
I think that's very true.
Possible. We're probably on the list.
Hi, everybody. Can we call the meeting to order?
I'm sure Mark would like to be on the list.
I'll threaten y'all again. I do know names.
Especially if Trump gets the nomination or Hillary put another business.
Good choice. I like this. Should be Republican.
All right. We're going to get started again. What a wonderful first half of this day, or a little more than that, I guess, at this point. I did want to just send a couple of folks who weren't able to join us. That's all right. We unfortunately, as you probably had seen on your agenda and in your materials, that Christina Swarns of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund was supposed to be on our last panel and sends her regrets that she, at the very last minute, wasn't able to join us. She had some excuse about a SCOTUS brief she had to write, and it was due in like a couple of days. So I guess that's legitimate. And Judge Price, who was with us yesterday for exciting panels, unfortunately had to leave unexpectedly for a family emergency and sends his regrets for not being able to stay with us later on today. But we will miss them, but so far I feel like everything is going very well, and we'll get started now with this wonderful panel too. And I think Ginny also has one similar update and announcement, but thank you.
Again, I'm Ginny Sloan. I'm president of the Constitution Project, and my microphone. Can everybody hear me? No. It won't stay up.
Now we hear you.
My microphone is attacking me. Thank you, Dale. Thank you. Is it on? Yeah, okay. My announcement is that unfortunately Governor Mark White will not be able to join us. He had a minor health problem that's preventing him from being here, and he sends his regrets to the audience and to the panelists. And Governor Taft, he has a message for you. He says, let Governor Taft know my absence was not triggered by Baylor's loss to Yale. And
he owes me $5.
Well, that's the rest of the message. He said, I will mail the $5 I lost on the game. So you should be waiting for that money.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I knew that you would be relieved by it. This is not Governor Mark White. This is Dale Bache, as all of you know, who has graciously agreed to step in for the governor and to give a very different but very important perspective on today's conversation. And next to Dale is General Mark Earley. General Earley was the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia for many years and has now become quite an outspoken voice on the kinds of issues that we've been addressing at this conference. And next to him is Governor Robert Taft, who was the governor of Oklahoma.
Ohio,
Ohio, one of those O states. I'm sorry. And has written extensively about the clemency issue. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to start by just asking a question of General Early and Governor Taft and about their experiences being part of the executive branch of a state and how they each dealt with the questions that came before them in their individual capacities, different kinds of capacities, in terms of clemency, questions about wrongful convictions or cases in which they feel the circumstances for prosecution are unjust, or whatever kinds of criminal cases they might have come in contact with, and what they did in their respective positions as members of the executive branch, one as governor, one as attorney general, and how that has affected their views of how these systems work, what they could have done differently, what they think their successors should have done or should be doing differently. And then after they've had a chance to talk about that, Dale is going to talk about some of his experiences as a defender using the kinds of systems that Governor Taft and General Early will describe, and then we'll just open it up for conversation. So Governor Taft, if we could start with you, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I really applaud all of you for being here and having an interest in this very important topic. I thought I'd just start by trying to talk about my first experience with the death penalty in Ohio. When you run for governor, it's not something you think about a lot. I don't know if any governor would have that even in their campaign platform or their campaign agenda, but you don't realize before you take office that you're going to be spending a lot of time as governor in a state with the death penalty in particular, reviewing requests for clemency. And in fact, in the governor's office, if any of you are students aspiring to work as a staff attorney in the governor's office, we had, one staff attorney did almost nothing but review requests for clemency that came in, not just on death penalty cases, but on other cases as well. In Ohio, I became governor in 1999, and the first case came to me for a clemency decision just 2 months into my first term. And that would be the first execution in Ohio for 36 years, because Ohio's death penalty had twice been declared unconstitutional. A statute had been reinstated in 1981, and it took that long for these cases to wind their way through the state appeals process and the federal appeals process. So the first case that came to me was in 1999. The defendant's name was Wilford Berry. He was described as a volunteer because he stated he was ready to die for his crime, and he had waived a lot of his further appeal rights. He could have extended his case out a very long time. There didn't seem to be any basis for granting clemency. The Ohio Parole Board, which is in Ohio, is the first step before you get to the governor. Has to review on that. They recommended against granting clemency when it came to me. I did not grant clemency, but because it was this unique case, the first case, and also because he was waiving his rights, you had to make sure that in fact he was doing that. And perhaps I should have gone myself to visit him, but I sent my chief legal counsel to the prison where he was being held to interview him and to make absolutely certain that he was comfortable about waiving his further appeal rights. And then what I didn't realize at all is that whenever an execution occurred, I wouldn't have to be there in person, but I would almost have to be present telephonically, because the director of the Department of Corrections, who was responsible for the execution, he would be present, and he would be overseeing it. And if, for example, Wilfred Berry at the last minute had decided to not waive his appeal rights, that changed his mind and didn't want to die and was prepared to pursue further appeals, then I would have had to have instantaneously granted a reprieve to him or a delay. So I'm sitting there, you know, waiting for the phone call from the prison where the execution would occur. Each time, you know, maybe 15 minutes before the execution, I would get a phone call, and then about 10 minutes after the execution, I would get a phone call. But sitting there, it was in the evening, and making that decision, and just hearing the case about Wilfred Berry, and then, of course, he was executed. It occurred to me that that the state of Ohio, I mean, it's obvious, but I felt it, was terminating the life of a human being. And yes, it was pursuant to law, but obviously that sentence is irrevocable, and you sure don't want to make any kind of a mistake of fact or a mistake of law. You want to make sure that all of the convicted person's rights have been upheld. And so I spent an enormous amount of time as governor, you know, reviewing clemencies, and clemency would be asked for in every single death penalty case. And while I was governor, there were 26 cases where clemency was requested, but I spent, there was a write-up that came to me, but I spent a lot of time, you know, poring over those because, as I said, you certainly don't want to make a mistake. In only one case, I felt clemency was an extraordinary remedy. And as these cases had, generally, they came to me having gone through innumerable appeals at the state level and the federal level, all the way through habeas corpus. And so, a lot of scrutiny. There was one case, however, in which I did commute the death sentence to life imprisonment. And that case is an example of how technology has changed the death penalty procedure significantly, because in that case, it was the case of Jerome Campbell, and subsequent to conviction and while he was in prison, there was a request that was upheld for additional DNA tests. DNA tests had not been available at the time that that Jerome Campbell was convicted. But so additional DNA tests were done on some blood that was on the shoes of the defendant. And the prosecutor had relied on that blood a lot at the trial level. But DNA determined that the blood on the shoes did not match the blood of the victim in that case. So this did not exonerate him, but I felt very strongly that had this evidence been available at trial, that the death penalty itself might not have been imposed in that case. So there was enough doubt for me to feel strongly that the case should be commuted to life in prison. So that's just a kind of an example of how I approached it. I think later on we can talk more about, you know, some reflections and, in terms of dealing with these cases and how I felt about it, but maybe we should move on to Mark right now.
Okay. General Early.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay? Great. So before I ramp up and tell you how we dealt with clemency, wrongful convictions, and unjust prosecutions when I was Attorney General in Virginia, I need to sort of get a running start to that to explain to you why basically how we dealt with them was to take the position there were none. There weren't going to be any clemency petitions granted, there weren't going to be any wrongful convictions, and there weren't going to be any unjust prosecutions, because we had our man and we were going to do our job in seeing that the death penalty was imposed. So I ran for office in 1987. At the time, the death penalty was not a significant issue in the race. But as a conservative Republican, it was a box I checked off that, yes, I'm in favor of the death penalty. I can't tell you that I really had a strong feeling about it. I just knew that if I was going to run for office, I didn't want to have to deal with being against the death penalty in Virginia. So I ran as supporter of the death penalty, although it wasn't an issue, and served for 10 years in the Senate of Virginia and then for 4 years as Attorney General. During the 10 years I was in the Senate, I was on the Courts of Justice Committee, and I don't think there was a bill that came down the pike that didn't expand the death penalty or do away with or make it easier to uphold a conviction. All of those bills I voted for. They were all sort of in a sterile environment of sitting in the Senate chamber of Virginia with gold tobacco leaves painted on the ceiling. I wasn't at all involved in getting my hands dirty in the process. I was a little bothered by it internally, quite frankly, because on the issue of abortion I was pro-life, and I sort of felt that my colleagues who were pro-life and anti-death penalty made more sense in their overall approach to the issue of the sanctity of life.